Hi, and welcome to Something to Talk About. I'm Linda McNamee, and for the next hour we are going to be talking about how we can make America beautiful, as in saving the environment, or what we can do to help. Is it Mother Earth? Mother Earth? Mother Earth. Okay, but before I begin, as usual, I have the little administrative issues that I need to take care of. I would like to thank the crew for this evening. We have Chris Flaherty, who is a staff member here, who helps all of us volunteers make sure that everything runs smoothly, and we do not need to know where the fire extinguisher is. We also have Colleen Moore, Stephanie Phloridis, and Jolie Atwood, who are volunteers giving up their Wednesday night to come help me out. And last but not least, I would like to thank my husband Paul for staying home for Daddy Date Night. Hopefully the children will remain somewhat sane for you, and you can all have a good night. Next, I would like to introduce my wonderful guest for this evening. We have Fritzie Nace, who is the Recycling and Energy Outreach Coordinator, working in the town of Winchester. But Winchester's only a couple of towns away, but something like recycling and environment and energy is something that is kind of universal.
Very.
So thank you for coming on the show for this
Thank you
evening.
for having me.
Now, usually when we begin, I just would like to find out a little bit more about my guest, and I'd like the audience to find out a little bit more about you. So can you tell us a little bit about where you grew up and where you went to school and how you decided to get involved in environmental issues?
Sure, that's a long way back.
We don't have to go too far.
I actually grew up in western Pennsylvania in a small town, and moved up to Massachusetts for college and have stayed ever since, so it's home now. And I have sort of evolved into doing the work I'm doing, as a lot of mothers do. They sort of have the opportunity to shift careers a little bit. But I got involved in recycling through my kids' school.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it was kind of fun when my oldest was in first grade. The school principal put out a call for parents to be on the school council, and I guess this is something that every school system has, every school has, as a way to sort of continually improve the school. So I raised my hand, said I'd be interested, and he said, well, what are you interested in working on? And I had looked around the school a little bit and said, well, I don't see much recycling going on. Some paper recycling is great, but maybe we could do more. Yeah. So he said, all right, go for it. So that was great permission and support, and I sort of went from there. And to me, recycling was just always something that made sense. When I grew up in my hometown, you know, we had a recycling center where you had to bring your stuff. So we would collect the newspapers and wind them up, and then we take the tops and bottoms off of cans and squish them and take those. And you know, when I think about it, my parents were growing up in the Depression era and World War II, and resources were scarce, so people used everything, and recycling was just
My dad is still in that mindset.
Yeah.
He saves everything.
So there's an aspect to that that's good, and we're sort of trying to revert a little bit to that with all the new packaging and whatnot that we have to deal with.
I think there's like an ad for a grocery store now that's like everything's reusable. Like they have you use like glass containers, and but they have everything in bulk there, so you can kind of save on the packaging.
That's a great idea, and you know, I think packaging was something that was supposed to help us, you know, have an easier life, but now then you have to deal with all this stuff.
Exactly.
So, so recycling has always made sense to me, and that was kind of how I got started down this path. That's kind of a whole other story about school recycling, and I can go into that
we can go into that
later.
a little bit.
Okay, so so there I was at the elementary school, and in Winchester, which is where I live now, we have a transfer station, so residents can choose to have a permit and bring your own trash.
So there's not
curbside pickup.
Oh, okay.
However,
we just got our huge bins for recycling.
Right, and I think because Winchester's kind of small,
Okay.
we haven't.
Now, do you have
ever
to
done that.
sort stuff like?
So in the
Glass
past,
and-
it was
oh, okay.
it was very much sorted. It was glass, metals, cardboard and paper. But then part of what made my sort of pathway a little bit easier, when I first started working in the school, we had to, what we did was I gathered up some parent volunteers and we put out more recycling bins in all the
Oh, okay.
classrooms and sort of put signs up to tell the kids, okay, you can put your plastic water bottles in here and tinfoil and whatnot could go in there. And then every Friday, a couple of us would show up at the school and all the fourth graders would go collect everything.
Okay.
And then we would take it with us in our car to the transfer station.
Oh, wow.
So after doing this for a while, I bumped into parents at a couple other schools that were doing something similar.
Okay.
And the middle school kids were doing some recycling, and the high
Wow.
school, some of the students.
And this is all like independent of each
all
other.
just
Wow.
independent, all these sort of
Okay.
efforts.
Great minds think alike.
Right. So I thought, well, this is a little funny. That why
Yeah.
can't we just do this
Reinventing the wheel.
Right.
Okay.
across the board? So we mustered up some parent volunteer energy and went to the Department of Public Works director, and he was very supportive and said, well, it's a little tricky for us to go around and pick up the recycling, but we're working on that. So the timing worked out really well. That I was able to volunteer to kind of help get this district-wide thing going. The Department of Environmental Protection started a new grant program for school recycling programs. So there's grant
Is that
money.
a state thing or national?
State.
State. Okay.
So there is state money available for school districts that want to implement recycling or improve their recycling.
Wow.
So that's available across the state. So I applied for one of the grants. We got one for the town. And the timing worked out really well because the town was shifting to single stream recycling. And the nice thing about that was they were able to have a recycling dumpster at each school.
Ooh.
So it was not an issue around who was going to be picking it up in the schedule and all of that. So all these things sort of fell in place at the same time. And so
That's
we've
when you know you're
continued.
doing something right.
Right. And everybody was on board, from the town manager to the school board to the superintendent. So it made it much easier for me. I know there are people who have tried to set up more recycling in their own
Okay.
school systems and run into a little bit more resistance. So
Okay.
I feel very lucky.
Because I'm sitting here, you know, thinking I volunteer in my son's kindergarten class, and like in the cafeteria, they have the recycle bins present. But how many thousands of pieces of paper does the normal kindergarten class go through?
Right.
You know, with all the different art projects,
Yeah.
they don't recycle paper in his classroom.
Oh, well,
And
it
I'm
seems like
like-
it could be very easy.
Yeah. Like, all those scraps of construction paper that I'm throwing away, I should be recycling.
Well, it's really not that hard to do, and if the town has recycling already, it probably would be a matter of getting some bins and seeing what the school system does with recyclables anyway. It may be that you just need another one of those barrels that you have on your curbside.
Or maybe it
and-
starts in first grade, but why can't it start in kindergarten or something like
Oh,
that? So-
absolutely. Well, I was a kindergarten aide in one of our schools for several years, and we did recycling in the kindergarten room, and the kids, they knew all about it. So
Oh, yeah.
they're very eager to do it right. So,
My children have renamed
Yeah.
our trash bins. We have the blue for regular trash and garbage, and then the green for the recycling. It's big bluey and big greeny.
oh, that's
So,
cute.
yeah,
Well, I
it's-
hope they don't come to Winchester and get too confused because we use blue for recycling. But, so that's always,
So do you have curbside pickup now?
no, we don't.
Okay,
no.
so
but
it's
we
still
have
the-
single stream, so now we don't have to
okay.
separate
Well,
the
that's
recycling,
cool.
which makes it easier, and I think a lot more people feel amenable to the idea of recycling.
Now, I've often wondered, like, is recycling an option for people?
That's a really good question.
And
so
what happens if you don't?
if you don't?
recycle?
So technically, in Massachusetts, it is state regulation, and I assume that's the same as state law, that you are not to mix recyclables in with trash.
Okay.
I think the way most towns deal with that, or the way it's sort of managed, is that the town is required to offer recycling separate from trash. So then it is up to the individuals to utilize that. So it's interesting because I also know a recycling coordinator in the town of Arlington where they do have curbside pickup. And some of the towns that have curbside pickup are starting to use a program where they have these little stickers that says, oops. And if they find recyclables in the trash can, they will leave it there. Or if you don't put out any
They'll put the sticker on, or they'll just leave the trash?
They'll leave the trash there with the sticker, with the little message that says, oops. Or if you don't put recycling out along with your trash, the assumption is that you're putting it all in the trash. So it's sort of a reminder, a little gentle nudge that we'd like
where my parents live now out in Western Mass, I don't know if they still do this, but a few years ago, their neighbors apparently weren't sorting. And instead of leaving the little oops sticker, the trash guys saw newspapers in the trash and just wouldn't pick anything up. They just kept going. And I think for like 2 or 3 weeks it happened, and they're like, what are we supposed to do with all this? So,
Yeah, I think
I'm just wondering, there should be some kind of repercussions.
Yeah, I think that's about the best way that it can be handled, because you can't really go out and start ticketing people, or you have the recycling police. I don't think anybody wants that.
Well, plus now a lot of communities are trying to save money, and instead of having a 3-man crew, it's all the automatic trucks with the arms and everything. So adding the recycling police to that would
that's
really tax your resources.
And another way that some towns are trying to, and it's actually the most effective way to get people to recycle, is the pay-as-you-throw program, so that you have to pay for your bag for your trash, and your trash has to be in that colored bag. So you're paying per bag. So you either get really good at stuffing a lot in there, or you realize that there's a lot of stuff in there that could actually go in your recycling bin. So you can recycle as much as you want to for free. And then you pay by the bag for trash. And in Winchester, we've come up with sort of a compromise, which we call the SMART program, Save Money and Reduce Trash. So it's an option that we have at the transfer station. It's not required, but if you know that you're a pretty good recycler and you're pretty dedicated to that, you can save quite a bit of money. So for example, I have a family of 4 plus a dog, and the normal sticker for the permit at the transfer station is $190. If you're in the SMART program, you pay $90, and then you pay per bag. So it's $1 per bag for the small one, $2 for the sort of larger trash bag. And I find that in a year, we spend about $120 for our trash, as opposed to $190.
So you're saving.
So we're saving a good amount of money. And anybody who's choosing to do a private hauler is probably paying much more than that. A lot more.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think where my husband grew up, they had the pay by size. So whoever was at the local hardware store or appliance shop decided to have a sale on trash compactors.
Oh, smart.
So everybody was going out and getting trash compactors so they could crush it down a little smaller, and then you'd have like this cute little cube.
Well, there's always an opportunity.
There you go.
Yeah. Well, my contention is that really we need the compactors on the recycling end, because you have all these water bottles that sort of are all full of air, and if you really smash them down, there's a lot more room. You can put a lot more recycling in there.
You gotta take the cover off before you smash it.
That's true.
Because I do that. I go Hulk smash, and I smash it.
Yeah. It's noisy.
Thrills my children to no end. So, do you happen to know, I mean, yes, Massachusetts says you're supposed to recycle, but it's really up to the individual. Do you know roughly percentage-wise how many people recycle?
I really couldn't tell you how many, but I have seen the map of the state with the towns that do pay-as-you-throw have the highest rate of recycling. And towns that have sort of no real program, generally generally don't have great recycling or don't have a single stream program. That also helps. So yeah, it's often when it comes down to the money where that kind of encourages people.
Now, we've talked about single stream. And before we used to have to sort.
Yeah.
Why were we allowed to change?
Well, this is actually really cool. So I've had fun twice now going to 2 recycling sorting centers.
Oh, cool.
So one of them was up in Peabody and one is down near Bunker Hill Community College, and it's just this big warehouse. And it's really pretty amazing because you go to the observation area and it looks like they're just trucks dumping trash. They're just piles of trash because it's just all mixed paper, glass, plastic. And then it's this amazing engineering thing that happens. So it's got like this conveyor belt that sort of lays things out a little bit flatter. And then there are usually some people at the first station pulling things off that really don't belong there, like the occasional air conditioner or, just sort of random things that really shouldn't be in there. And the one thing that they really hate at those places are plastic bags or plastic film because there's so many moving parts in the machine and it gets caught. So that's one thing that they really don't like to have end up in your recycling. But so then it goes through, some little thing where the glass sort of shreds up and it falls through the cracks and makes a pile of glass. And then air puffs up and the light paper goes off this way and the cardboard goes off that way. And then it goes through some magnetic thing where the steel cans get pulled up. And, so it's really cool. And then at the end they have these little laser lights that detect whether it's clear plastic or colored plastic, and this blast of air sucks it one way or the other. So it's really amazing when you see. And then at the end they come out in these bales of paper and bales of plastic and bales of metal. So it's really a really neat use of technology.
That is really cool.
Yeah, it is. It's pretty amazing.
So then what happens to those little bales of stuff?
So that becomes a product, and that is what the recycling haulers sell. So a lot of it has gone over to China, particularly plastics, where they do the final reusing of the plastics. Paper, I think, is often dealt with more here in the United States. But that becomes a product, and that's why the recycling haulers really would prefer clean recycling. So if you have a recycling barrel and most people are putting clean recycling in, and then someone comes and dumps the rest of their uneaten lunch in there, it kind of messes it up. So if you think about your recycling as not just the trash bin, but as something that's going to go get used somewhere. I like to think of it as, I'm storing my recycling in my house. Do I really want to have food stuff sitting there? No.
Because you also have a dog.
Well, yeah.
And some dogs like to go exploring things.
Yes, fortunately ours doesn't, but lots do.
Some do?
Yeah.
Now what, we've talked about just like the advantages of recycling and, the financial aspect for the individual, but how do towns benefit? I mean, do they get a percentage of those bales?
Well, no, not it. Well, that's not necessarily a steady thing. So the real advantage for most towns is decreasing the amount of trash that they have to deal with, because I'll speak about what I know in Winchester is we pay by the ton for the trash that we haul to
like a landfill?
It's actually an incinerator. And I think in Massachusetts there are more incinerators or more trash going to incinerators. So not only are we paying by the ton, but we're also paying the fuel to transport it. So there's a cost involved in taking the trash to the incinerator. So if we can decrease the tonnage of the trash, that's really helpful. At periods of time when recycling, when those bales of plastic and whatnot have been worth a little bit more, then the town would get some money back. So there can be an advantage to that. So there's a little bit of the do-good in terms of reusing the resources, but also decreasing the tonnage.
Okay.
So that's one of the
And plus,
reasons.
now that they're incinerating, that's helpful too, because before, when they were just dumping it, I mean, you were losing
Absolutely,
land.
absolutely, and that's, I think, where the real crisis happened, where it's become a crisis to not have any more space to put garbage. So that really pushed the recycling, I think, a lot. And the incineration, I mean, one of the upsides that I say to people is most of them are burned to energy, so they create some energy
Oh, okay.
while they're doing this. The downside is then you have all this sort of ash that you have to deal with. So
But ash doesn't take up as much room in a landfill as
that's right.
the,
That's
the,
right.
the pre-incinerated stuff.
Yes, that would take thousands of years to disintegrate.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because I know some is it towns that are actually starting to outlaw plastic water bottles.
Yes, I think Concord is one, or Carlisle. And I know this great story of this grandmother who just took it upon herself to make this her thing, and she, really worked and pushed it through and have banned water bottles.
Wow.
And, I found out in the process of some of the other work that I do at our schools, with the outreach, we were looking into putting in a water bottle refilling station as a
high school has
retrofit.
one.
Yeah, they're
I
great.
finally used it. I'm like, wow, this is really cool.
You don't have to sit there with your water bottle tipped and sort of try to fill
Yeah.
it up. You just, and it usually tells you how many water bottles you've saved
Yes.
with the filling.
Yeah.
So it's great. So one of our schools was looking at retrofitting, and so we were asking the food service, how many bottles of water have you ordered this year? She said, well, in the first 10 weeks of school, they ordered over 47,000
Wow.
bottles of water. And that's just one school for 10 weeks.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of
That is
bottles of water. And so, you have all these plastic bottles, and they actually can be reformulated into stuff.
Okay.
So if you get them into the recycling stream, it's great. It's less resources to start fresh and having to make more plastic. So it's, water bottles are one of the great things that, if you can get those off the sidewalk and into the recycling stream, they can be well used.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Though I know at my son's middle school, they were banning the water bottles somehow for a while because kids were flipping, that whole thing.
Yeah, my kids aren't old enough to do the water bottle flipping thing,
Yeah.
but I've seen like YouTube videos of how many
yeah.
times you can flip.
Right, and it lands straight up.
And straight up.
Yeah, so.
But now they, flipping aside, but just the water bottles, they've marketed like the flavor packets that are perfect water bottle size, and you can turn your water bottle into Kool-Aid or, energy drink or whatever.
Oh, what fun.
Yeah. But you have some cool things over here. So let's, we could go back to recycling afterwards.
Sure. Well, one of the things I was going to talk about as an advantage in decreasing the municipal waste and the trash. So one of the big things that creates huge weight in the trash is food waste.
Okay.
So a lot of people just, scrape the plate into the trash can and whatnot. And food is really heavy. So I've gone into the schools to do waste audits in the cafeteria.
I think our science center did that to like some of the kids, and they had like, first graders wear the little hazmat suits and go through the...
It's a great learning tool, and the kids usually love it once they kind of get over the idea of, picking through the trash. Yeah, and you've got your gloves on, so it's not, it's no worse than playing in the mud. But so, when you do the waste audit and you pull all the food waste out of there and you weigh it, it's often like 2/3 of the weight of the trash. So yeah, it's huge. So I think another step that's happening now is a lot of composting is happening. So not only backyard composting, but on a large scale. And I know in this general area, the North Shore and Metro Boston area, there are businesses that have cropped up to pick up food waste and organic waste and are taking it to farms to be really on a large scale made into compost.
My son just went to his field trip was at the New England Aquarium, and I think they actually had like the compost bin
in the cafeteria
at the aquarium.
Yeah. Well, there is actually a statewide ban that the DEP put forth that any place that produces over 1,000 pounds of food waste per week is required to compost. So a lot of universities are now offering composts, large-scale restaurants, and some small-scale, will do it just sort of on their own accord. But that's become, one thing we've noticed that there's just an incredible amount of food waste in our country. But if it can at least be returned to the earth and not incinerated and turned into carbon, that's a win-win.
Okay, now what about like garbage disposals?
So
does that take the place of composting, or does that still like have an adverse effect on?
Well, this is another interesting thing, and what I'm discovering is that you have to kind of learn about your local municipal situation. So what I've learned is that any town whose waterway goes to Deer Island out in Boston Harbor, they have an anaerobic digester, so that the sort of sludge that comes off of the water is put into an anaerobic digester, which is sort of like a composter, and that is then turned into compost. So and then there's something about the heat and the energy too. So there's a lot of good
little
stuff.
egg things are, or is that
Probably.
something else?
Well, these are huge. They're really big tanks.
But I just remember like going on Boston Harbor and I don't know if it's the water treatment plant, but there's these giant like egg-like things.
It could be. I have not actually gone down there to see what it looks like, but I heard a presentation at a conference on that. So if your garbage disposal leads to Deer Island, then you're actually composting. And I think there was a program set up in some apartment or condo units in Boston to sort of encourage people to compost that way and work that way. But if you don't know, if your water disposal leads to Deer Island, or you know that it doesn't,
or you have a septic system,
or you have a septic system, right, then it's probably better to keep the food out of there. But one of the things that I've been doing for years is my home composting, which is what this little thing is. I have this on my kitchen counter, and I just, food scraps go in there. It has.
Is it stinky?
It's not, because it has a carbon filter. So it doesn't have any smell. It's fine, and it's small enough that you can't really have it sitting around too long before it's full.
True.
So I have a compost bin in my yard, and I add grass clippings and leaf clippings sort of opposite. So
do you have to add worms, or?
Well, mine's open on the bottom, so I don't. Some people do buy worms.
Because I watched Curious George, and he made compost once. So
Curious George does great stuff.
He does.
Yeah, and kids love that idea. We were actually just at one of the schools the other day, and they've started up their spring composting because they have a school garden.
Fun.
And one of the kids asked if we were going to add worms to it, and I said, well, I think the worms will find their way, but they were very curious about how worms were involved in this process of changing the food scraps into dirt. Anything that involves.
So once you put it like in a big compost bin out in your yard, I mean, how do you eventually make room for more?
So there's a finite space, and it does sort of keep compacting down, and you have to keep adding what's called brown matter, which is usually chopped up leaves, old leaves. And you can throw in paper towels or some paper products, tea bags, coffee filters, that kind of stuff. Eggshells and coffee grounds are great for the soil. They love it. Lots of protein and caffeine. I don't know. So you have to kind of stir it around to get the air in there and really allow it to sort of move. But the bin I have has a door on the bottom, so when I open the bottom, a lot of times it's almost all dirt by that time.
Cool.
So I can just pull it out from the bottom, and then it settles down, and I add more.
Any idea how long it takes it to like turn into dirt from top to bottom? Are we talking a year, 5 years?
No, I would say definitely within a year, and during the summer when it's hot and it's really moving along, it can be much quicker. So ideally what I would do is in the fall have it emptied out for the winter, so I can start piling it in, and then by the next fall it's ready to come out again. And you can throw it on your beds, flower beds, whatever. Fill in, if you need to resod a little spot.
Because Burlington has a community garden down behind one of the elementary schools. And I think I haven't been down to the community garden. I probably shouldn't admit that. But I think they have a compost bin over there too that you could use some of the soil that's created for your little garden
I
plot.
wouldn't be surprised. Most community gardens do, because when you weed your garden
you're
or
weeding your
clip
garden,
stuff,
yeah.
you just throw it in there, and
I'm just wondering how it gets the eggshells and stuff.
I bet people bring it. I bet people do.
Okay.
I know.
And Curious George said certain foods, or he learned, he doesn't talk.
Yes.
No mayonnaise, no meats.
So if you're doing small scale composting,
Okay.
you want to stick to fruit and vegetable scraps,
Okay.
eggshells, coffee and tea grounds. A bit of paper is okay, but you want to avoid any animal
Dairy.
products.
Animal.
So-
Okay. Animal
So
products as a
dairy,
whole.
meat, bones. In the larger scale composting, there's enough heat and enough
Okay.
movement and enough organisms that they can manage it, and it's not too
But
close
pretty
to a
much
neighbor.
stuck to
Yeah.
a compost is vegetarian.
If you're doing it at home, it's a good way to
Okay.
go. Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Not to oversimplify matters, but okay, so we talked about recycling in schools. Is the composting thing something that would be introducible to schools?
Absolutely, absolutely. And there are school systems around who have done that already. I'm hoping to help Winchester move that way. There's an interest, and we're
Okay.
just trying to work out the process.
Okay.
So I will have to just say, I really want to say that there has been an army of mostly mothers everywhere who've helped just bring a lot of this stuff into the schools. And I know recently in Andover, a group of moms has gotten a recycling and composting program going at their schools up there.
Wow.
In the whole Franklin County composts in their schools.
Okay.
And Lexington and Arlington have also been working on school composting.
Neat.
Yeah, so it's great. And now that there are these companies that haul on a large
Yeah.
scale, you just bring in the toter on the wheels with the lid, and they put a bag in there, and
Okay.
you just throw all the food scraps, pizza, hamburgers,
Okay.
beans, celery, carrots, whatever.
So it's an omnivore recycling
It's an omnivore
system.
recycling
Okay.
system, and you can even put your napkins in there.
Mm.
And a lot of schools have made a big effort to get away from styrofoam trays
Yes.
and now do cardboard,
Mm-hmm.
and so those can go in there. So
And even like my husband's old company, they had in their cafeteria, instead of like regular plastic knives, forks, and spoons, it was like a biodegradable,
There are.
recyclable.
yeah, well, there are compostable
Yeah, yeah, that's what it was. It wasn't
dining
really
ware.
recyclable.
Yes, the regular plastic forks and knives and whatnot can't be recycled. It's not the right material.
Okay.
So if you really are committed and invest in the compostable utensils, then you can throw those in there too. So at this point, we're getting to the point where even, more like up to 90% of the
Wow.
waste can be diverted out of the trash.
Cool.
Yeah, it's really great. I did a waste audit yesterday, and we discovered that it was over 2/3 of the weight was
Wow.
compostable. So, I think that's where we're going to head, hopefully.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think between the composting of organics, and it's not just food waste that can go in there. It's
Okay.
at this point, the meat, bones, fish, dairy, all that stuff. But you can also put in, again, paper products, anything that's organic.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, I know I'm straying from the sheet, but Burlington schools have like textile recycling bins.
Yes.
Do you know anything about that?
Yes. So, this is another way that towns have gotten weight out of the trash. And again, it's reusing, which is, awesome. So, most of us know Salvation Army and whatnot, and you put, old clothes and shoes that somebody could still use, but you
But
don't need them
sometimes your
anymore.
shoes are just, or you got holes ripped in them.
Right.
My kids destroy clothes.
Right. So you have things that nobody really could wear, but you don't really want to throw them away. So there are now companies that deal just with that kind of material that could be turned into rags, into fill for different things.
Okay.
So there are collection bins now that look for just that kind of thing, and some of them will take even, belts, purses, flip-flops, all kinds of stuff. So, or your linens. If you've got a stained tablecloth, it's just stuff like that that you really can't use anymore. But the material itself could be used. So, if you're motivated to find someplace other than the trash, there are
There's usually some other place.
Right.
Okay.
There is. Yeah.
So I'm just wondering what's left in the trash if we get rid of all the food and the textiles and the recyclable. Now, okay, so you did mention that like plastic knives and forks are not. So some plastic is not recyclable.
That's true. So you have to look, first of all, to see if there's a triangle on it that has a number in it. And the number is basically a code for what type of plastic it is.
Okay.
And most towns will tell you which numbers they accept in their recycling. So you have to know.
So like styrofoam is a form of plastic, but it's not recyclable.
In most places, that's right. Yeah. So that's actually an area that I think in the state of Massachusetts, we're sort of working to figure out.
Okay.
There have been some companies that did recycle foam, and unfortunately, one of them was Refoam It, and they had to go out of business.
Oh.
And they took everything. They took all the meat trays. They took styrofoam cups, packing blocks.
Yeah, like
pretty
the
much
styrofoam heated, coffee cups.
Drink cup. Yes,
They're
yes.
everywhere.
All the stuff.
I still remember when McDonald's used to serve their quarter pounder in styrofoam.
Oh, that's right. It was yellow or
Long
blue.
time
And the fish was blue.
Fish was blue. I think the Big Mac was yellow because the quarter
Yellow.
pounder was white.
Was white. Okay. Yes, I was.
But
a
yeah,
Big
it
Mac
was
fan.
it was foam. It was styrofoam.
Yeah, so a lot of places are just stopping, and that's another thing that's beginning to be banned in certain towns is styrofoam.
But like when you buy meat at the grocery store, it usually comes in a styrofoam. So what's an alternative?
Well, some places do put the meat in more of a cardboard tray, lined with the
That-
sort of plasticky
yeah.
thing, that sort of absorptive
Yeah.
thing.
The puppy pad.
Right. I was going to say diaper, but I didn't think that was a very good analogy. So you can begin to ask. I know some places will just wrap meat, individually as you buy it rather than prepackaged with the cellophane. So those are the kinds of things that, are choices that people might, work at making. And I think as customers ask more for those things, then, stores will respond to that. So that's another, I think, one of the things I've learned as I'm getting to be more familiar with the recycling is that it seems just as you figure out what to do with one form of packaging, some other form of packaging comes out, and then you have to figure it out. So that's part of the challenge.
Okay, now back, I just glanced at my notes for a second because we talked about composting and using the soil. Other than like gardening, is there any other benefit or use of the composted material?
Well, certainly you've got a very rich material that has lots of minerals and vitamins and nutrients. So, to add that into your garden is great. And so a lot of farms use compost.
Does it still smell by the time it gets down to that dirt, or
it smells like dirt? Pretty much.
It smells like dirt.
Yeah, I mean,
because when you mentioned farms, I just remember I grew up in Western Mass and driving through Hadley, and you have to roll the windows up because all you could smell is cows.
Yeah, well,
and manure.
If you live near one of these compost areas, and I know at our transfer station we compost leaves and grass, and it smells a lot like a cow farm. But there's something kind of charming about that, I guess.
Exactly.
If you don't have to breathe it all the time. But so it's it's used somewhere to help more plants grow.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, I'm stream of consciousness. I'm thinking of this cool little recycling or composting can that you keep, and then the big barrel outside, whether you have one on a crank or something.
Yeah.
Now, my parents swear by banana peels on rose bushes. So they just take their banana peel, skip the compost, and just throw that right in the garden. I mean, is there a benefit to doing
Well, I
that?
had never heard of the banana peel one, but I do know people who will just crush up eggshells and coffee grounds and just spread that around. And when you think about it, eggshells, calcium, and you go buy lime, which is calcium. So, you can just skip that step and put your eggshells right down. It looks kind of pretty. I did it last Easter with our colored eggs.
Oh, that's a
Kind
cool
of made the garden
idea.
look colorful. Yeah. So, there are some, and a lot of those things people have done for a bazillion years. It just seems new to us.
Okay. Now, we talked a little bit earlier about cross-contamination, regular recyclables versus garbage.
Right.
Is there a problem with, like we talked about, the aquarium or large organizations doing bulk composting? Is there a problem with cross-contamination there? Like if somebody throws in their straw with the milk carton with the extra milk? I mean,
Right. Well, yeah, it's not
I mean,
ideal.
does it mean that the whole kit and caboodle gets thrown into the landfill, or?
I would guess, as it's being picked up, the haulers that deal with it sort of assess this kind of thing. I have not visited one of these places, but I think there's a certain level of clearing out of stuff that they can sift.
Like a sifting through. Okay.
Right, because I know at the Winchester transfer station they have this great machine that comes and sort of takes the not completely finished compost and then puts it through this sort of grinder, and then it goes up a sort of an incline and then sifts. Yeah, so I think there's some level at which large pieces of stuff that shouldn't be in there. But I have to say I've also, gotten compost that has like little bits of some stuff in there. Yes, and even mine, the Chiquita sticker from the banana peel will often end up in there. So, I think a little bit of that is okay.
Now, over time, I'm asking you to tell the future, but do you think there will come a time when, and near future, distant future, where we will be able to recycle like all different kinds of plastics, or that cross-contamination won't be a huge issue? Like the plastic shopping bags.
Right.
I mean, will there come a time when we can recycle those?
Well, they actually are recyclable. You just have to find a place that allows you to drop them off. I know some grocery stores will often take those.
Okay.
It's interesting to me because that hasn't been a very publicized realm of recycling, and the sort of finer points of which bags, do what.
Okay.
But yes, a lot of the bags are turned into other things.
Okay.
So I think that might be an area where perhaps we hear a little bit more.
Okay.
I know many places have said, well, let's just not use them. Let's try to stick with the reusable bags. So that fight's certainly nowhere near over. So I think a lot of people do reuse their bags to pick up stuff off the sidewalk and put that in the trash.
Not necessarily off the sidewalk, but we have cats. So.
Right, there you go. So I'm all for, with the 3 R's,
repurposing.
It's repurposing.
Yeah.
There's reduce, reuse, recycle, repurpose. But, if you can reuse it and repurpose it, that's better than just...
So now that you mentioned reduce, reuse, recycle, can we give a couple of examples of each one? So reduce.
Okay.
What are different things that we can reduce what?
Okay, so first of all, we're really good consumers. We can ask ourselves, do I really need that? So how much stuff do I really need to buy? So that's sort of one level of reducing. Another level, which I think of particularly in terms of parents with school-age kids and packing lunches, is you can buy all kinds of cute little packaged things, but another way to reduce, you think about all the pieces of trash that is. So another way to reduce is to buy in bulk and then have reusable containers.
So instead of buying the potato chips in single serving bags,
you can have your big bag of chips and then your little snap little lids.
And that way they won't get crushed
as
quickly.
That's right. You just have to make sure your kids bring those little containers home.
Yes. And my children are actually really good about that.
Yeah. And the other great thing about those is if your kid doesn't eat all of the food, it's very easy for them to bring it home, and it's not a total mess, not quite like a brown paper bag.
True.
Yeah. So that's one way, another way of reducing. And at home, you can also just choose to buy more in bulk as opposed to smaller.
Yeah, then you have storage as an issue.
That can be
Like we
true,
love going
right.
to the warehouse places and buy, the lifetime supply of
Right.
paper towels. But
Right.
it's like, okay, where do I
with all
put
those.
these?
That's true. That's true. But I guess I was thinking in terms of things that would otherwise be packaged.
Yeah, like the
in much
family
smaller-
size pack of
Right.
Cheetos as
Right.
opposed to all those little
Exactly.
lunch bags.
Exactly. Yeah. So reducing, can be,
Or
individual
reusing
packaging.
the plastic, I don't want to say Tupperware because it's
It's not
that's a
Tupperware.
brand name, but the plastic boxes as opposed to Ziploc baggies.
Exactly. So, you get takeout food a lot of times now. It's not in the styrofoam. Some places are, but they're in reusable plastic containers. Or you get the deli, all
Yep.
those little pint and quart size. So you could just reuse those over and over again. And even the baggies, actually, this was one of the other things I brought. So this is my other fun thing for reducing is, so we use Ziploc bags for some things at home, but we reuse them endlessly. So we wash them out, and we have this thing in our kitchen, and you can just drip dry.
Cool.
And then the next morning, you just go use them again. So while my kids were in elementary school, I think I went through one box of snack size and not even a whole box of sandwich bags for their entire kindergarten through 5th grade career.
Wow.
So it's possible, and you can probably do away with plastic baggies completely. But if you've got them around and you're using them,
Unless your kids are going on a field trip and the instructions say make sure you can throw all of
Yes.
lunch will not be saved.
right, which is another area I would love to work on. But
Well, we're working on it.
yeah,
We're working on
Yeah.
it.
I mean,
okay, so we talked about reducing.
yeah,
Now that's one, reduce and reuse.
right. So reusing, again, I think just it's a consciousness. It's a matter of like stopping and thinking about, when you buy something. I feel like so often we're just thinking about, do I want this thing? Do I need this thing? And do we involve in our decision and our choices any thought about what went into producing this? And how do I feel about that? Is there a large carbon footprint? Was this something that has come from the other side of the world? What are the resources that were used to make this?
Okay.
What kind of labor practices went into making this?
How do you find that stuff out?
Google it.
Okay.
The internet, so a lot of the stuff is just, you have to be
Okay.
interested and find out. But then you decide, do I really need this? Or can I sort of do without or figure something else out? And then the other part of the decision is, well, what happens when I'm done with this and what's left? So, we think about throwing something away. Well, it doesn't just go away. Away is somewhere.
Go somewhere else.
Right. And where is that going to end up? All too often it's on the side of the road, sometimes on purpose and sometimes purely by accident. But I think that's where, we can again have some sort of awareness about our choices and our decisions. So if we've used it as much as we can and it's really not of good use to anybody else, can we recycle it? Can that become raw material for something else?
Okay.
So, clothing we talked about, plastic, food, cardboard, so many different things can be recycled if they can't be reused.
I'm also thinking, right around now, people are starting to think about planting seedlings for their gardens, and I've been collecting the cardboard egg containers.
Egg containers, yes.
Because I heard that those are.
Well, it's so easy because you can put the dirt in and then you
Yeah.
just cut out the little thing and then you just put the whole thing in the earth.
You can do that.
Oh, yeah, and then the paper will just sort of.
Because I saw a new trick that I want to try this year where you take like toilet paper and you spread it out. And, when the seed directions say plant every 2 inches or something, you
Right.
put like a little dot of glue every 2 inches, water
Yeah, water soluble.
soluble glue.
Right, okay.
Like Elmer's school glue or something.
Yeah.
And then you put a seed on that little dab of glue. And then after it dries, you roll it up over the the paper
over the paper
tube.
Tube, yeah.
And then when you get to your garden,
You
you
just go.
unroll it and you put a little bit of dirt over the top of it, and the toilet paper and the water-soluble glue
Such
goes
a
away.
great idea.
And there you go. So I want to try that this
Well,
year.
that's such a great idea because whenever I planted, like once you drop the seed, it's really hard to see where
exactly.
it went, you know, and you end up with a clump right here, and
Exactly.
you know, and
Or
that's
when
a great
you
idea.
brush the soil over, it
Right.
changes your pattern.
Right, yeah.
So I want to try that this year.
Well, now you've got me thinking, as I actually just bought seeds, and often I'm lazy and I wait and I buy already, you know, sprouted.
Some things I will do that. I have tried growing peppers for years from
Yeah.
seed,
And
and tomatoes as well.
Yeah,
And they get to be about this high and stop.
right, yeah.
So it's like, to me, it's worth going to the garden center and buying, you know, a
Yes.
pepper plant
Yeah.
that I know something will grow.
I'm with you. I have to say, I'm with you. I have a friend who can plant seeds and ends up with a beautiful garden. So I don't know what she does that's so much better, but
On more tangents,
yes.
I planted I bought the seedlings for the tomato
Yeah.
plants once, and got lazy toward the end of the season because I was like up to here in cherry tomatoes. They reseeded themselves.
Yes.
I did not know they reseeded themselves, and I had about 60 tomato plants the next year, and I gave like 55 of them away.
And they grew.
They grew,
produced.
and again, at the end of
Yeah.
that season, I was overwhelmed with tomatoes, and I just left them there. And
sounds
the
like a
next
good
year,
story.
I had like 20
The never-ending
plants.
tomato plants. Yeah.
So I'm hoping this year, I'm like counting on it.
Well, I have to say, one of the things about home composting is I'll put the soil into my garden, and the next
Okay.
thing I know, there's some, you know, squash something or other coming up because they're so fertile. So I have to be careful about what's sprouting
Yes.
in the compost.
And you might end up getting some cross-pollination too, and come up with a brand new vegetable
Well, I've
that
had
you've never
that.
seen before.
I have had that, some sort of squash-ish thing that
Yes.
never really developed. So
I planted acorn squash once.
uh-huh.
No, was it acorn? No, butternut squash.
Yeah.
And it must have cross-pollinated with something, because instead of having butternut squash that has like that pear shape,
Yeah.
I had a whole bunch of albino pumpkins.
Oh. Well, that's
They
funny.
were the color of butternut squash, but they were shaped like pumpkins.
Like pumpkins.
I did not grow pumpkins,
And
so I
was there anything in there that was edible?
didn't try. But they made lovely decorations for Halloween.
Well, that's great. I mean, you see so many out there. I think that's probably what they're doing anyway, you know, and then you have to go pay for them. So there you go.
Okay, so we got to get back over
Okay.
to recycling and less about gardening. So we talked about reducing, reusing, and I think we spent a lot of time about recycling.
Yes.
So are there other ways that you could think of that we haven't talked about, how individuals can pick up the pace a little bit and start recycling a little bit more, like reusing water bottles we've talked about?
Right. Yeah. So, well, there's another thing that I just sort of thought of this today is my green routine. Like, I know a lot of people say, well, I really want to, you know, bring my own bags to the grocery store, but I always forget. So, you know, I think as many things as we can just sort of make part of our routine, it makes it easier. So I know I have my reusable cooler bag, and then in that I put all my other bags,
Okay.
and I just take the whole thing into the store with me, use what I need to, and then when I come home and I unload, I just put it all back and then set it by the door, and I can take it back out to the car. So that's one thing. And then another thing that I was given as a gift, actually by the same friend who gave me this lovely thing, is this, which just lives in my purse all the time. So I go to CVS or another store where it's plastic bags, and I say, oh, don't bother, I have my own.
That is
And
really cool.
It's a really great bag, and it is so sturdy. I have carried a gallon of milk plus
Wow.
other groceries in this, and it's completely fine. And then I just take it home and I fold it up, put it back in my purse, and the next time I stop and didn't realize I was going to go to the store, I have it right there.
You never know.
Yeah.
Some stores used to like give you discounts. They'd like take
Right.
10 cents off for every bag or every
Yeah.
container.
Some still do. I don't see
Okay.
that quite as often, but I know Trader Joe's, if you bring your own bags,
okay.
then you can enter the raffle.
Oh.
So you never know when you get $25 bag of groceries for free.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
See, I like going to Trader Joe's because sometimes you just need the paper bag.
Well, that's true, and they have the paper
And they
bags.
have the paper bags.
But I'm guessing you use it more than once, right? Or use it for other things.
I use it for other things.
Right.
Like when I'm donating clothes and you want to put the clothes in the big
Right.
bin sitting in a parking lot somewhere, I put all the clothes in the bag.
There you go. Yeah, and
One
paper
thing of
bags.
packing tape.
There you go.
There
And
you
paper
go.
bags are great for your paper recycling. You put all the paper recycling in, and then you just throw the whole thing in the bin.
Exactly.
So that's awesome.
So we only have a couple minutes left. So now, in your research, I was thinking about the whole plastic versus backing up, shopping bags.
Yeah.
Is there a lifespan, or because somebody at a grocery store was commenting that sometimes people, the food spills or the bags get
Right.
dirty and torn, and when are they are the reusable shopping bags recyclable?
I'm not
like
aware
through
that
the
they are.
Textile thing, or
Yeah, I mean they are made out of recycled plastic,
that's cool.
so I'm not sure. It depends.
Use your
it-
best
what kind-
judgment
Yeah, I was
when it
going to say it
gets
depends
really
what kind of shape it's in. I mean, I've
gnarly.
had mine. Actually, I've lost more than I've had, go bad. But I know
I've had a couple that have like huge holes in them, and that's when I, bring them over to the textile recycling.
Yeah.
Hopefully that's legal.
I don't know about that one, but hey, you can find out.
I'm like, well, it's fabric.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. There's a phrase that I've heard that's called aspirational recycling, sort of that idea that you want to be able to recycle it. So you throw it in the recycling bin hoping that it can be recycled, which sometimes it can and sometimes it can't. But, I've used my bags over and over for years,
Yeah.
and I haven't actually had one, rip or anything.
Wow.
So I don't know.
Well, cool. But you know what? We are out of time.
Well, it feels like there's
So-
just always more to.
Oh, there
What
always
was I
is.
say?
That's
Yeah.
why we always have sequels. But thank you very much.
Well, thank you for inviting me
This
to
was
come.
enjoyable and thought-provoking. And I also want to thank everyone at home for tuning in this evening, with Earth Day coming up on April 22nd.
Yep.
And Burlington also has a hazardous waste day coming up at the end of the month, so you will probably get a phone call about that. Or you can check out B News or bcattv.org, find out all about that as well. So thank you very much for tuning in this evening, and I will see you around town. Good night.